start. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning into this session of the Fireside Chat. This session we have Mr. Gregg Parker, who is actually a British national living and working here in Malaysia. He's been in Malaysia since 2003, actually, and has had a long background in organizing conferences and doing corporate communications and public relations management. He's always had a passion for real estate and in living spaces. And at present, he is a real estate negotiator, focusing on providing solutions to expats, retirees, and Malaysians, where he focuses on meeting and exceeding expectations of his clients. Thanks for joining us today, Gregg. How are you?
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm fantastic.
Brilliant. Gregg, just right off the bat, I just wanted to ask you, what drew you to Malaysia?
I'd like to say it was for work, Ernest, but it was a young lady that drew me to Malaysian shores back in 2003. I always say it's either because of work or because of love. And for me, it was the latter.
Well done. And when you first came to Malaysia, can I ask you, where did you land in? Was KL the first destination?
Actually, I came kind of on a holiday first to check the place out. And I went over to Sabah where my girlfriend was staying at the time. That was fantastic. And then I spent a bit of time in Kuala Lumpur. So it was a fantastic place and I loved it. And I still do to this day.
And can I ask, where did you come from before that, before coming to Malaysia?
Okay, I'm from Bournemouth, south coast of England. So it's about a 13-hour flight. So it's not a short trip.
Oh, it's definitely going to be a very different temperature and also climate. How did you acclimatize?
I traveled quite a bit before, so I knew it was going to be hot and sweaty. And I think day by day, I could walk 1 meter further down the road and sweat slightly less.
What about food, Gregg? Because I think food is and cuisine is going to be so important to anybody coming to Malaysia or Malaysians going out. I mean, they want to feel connected. How do you find the Malaysian cuisine?
Love it, Ernest, love it. I love the food. I love the spiciness. I think there's kind of like I think everyone thinks that people from the West, from the UK or other countries can't handle their spice. In actual fact, we can. We love the spicy food. And I think that's the great thing about Malaysia. You've got the mix of the Malay, the Chinese, the Indian food there as well. And it's fantastic. And I'm a big fan. Sold.
Great. Actually, I have to ask you, how's the durian?
Okay, I'm not a fan of durian though. I'm letting you down on this one, sorry.
Okay, Gregg. Now to more interesting stuff with regard to real estate. I wanted to ask you, since you've been here and you've lived here for a good 17 years already, can you let us know with regard to how you personally have experienced the living conditions in Malaysia where you've lived at?
Okay. So I've moved around Kuala Lumpur quite a bit, from whether it's Cheras to Damansara, from one side to the other side. And I mean, if you're asking how's Kuala Lumpur changed over the years, hugely, hugely in terms of the service. You know, when I went to the immigration department back in 2003, it was a bit of a hodgepodge, should I say. But now it's very fast and very efficient. And I think we've come a long way in terms of infrastructure, in terms of banking, finance, across the board. And it's an easier place to live.
But in terms of your accommodation per se, I mean, is it very different from what you have been used to in the UK itself?
I'd say in the UK, probably, if you live in London and the cities, you live in a mix between landed and condominiums, leaning more towards landed. I'm from the landed side. In the south, we mostly live in houses. We don't have that many condos. My dad, for example, is always shocked that I used to live on level 22. He couldn't understand, you know, how can you be so high? It's because outside of the cities, we don't have that many high rises. So there is a slight change there as well, which you have to adapt to.
Did you find living in a strata property on level 22 difficult for you to accept? Because you've, from what I hear, you've actually grown up on landed.
I think it's almost, okay. It's a change between moving from having a lot more freedom on a landed property and then moving to a lot more tighter, you know, enclosed, surrounded by neighbors, waiting for the lifts, going down to the car park. But once you're over that, you'll realize that you've got the safety and security and the amenities that you get in a condominium, a gym and a swim pool. They're great benefits. And I think, to be honest with you, you adapt very quickly.
Greg, sorry, you were mentioning just now that in the UK you were living in a landed. Would it be considered similar to our terrace houses or our bungalow-sized landeds?
Actually, it's all very similar. I'd say I was living in a detached house beforehand, and it's quite similar to what you've got in terms of detached houses here. Terraced houses the same. It's pretty much the same structure-wise. So I don't think there's a big shift and change from the UK or from Europe, I'd say, over to Malaysia.
Great. Greg, now that you've been living here for also 17 years, do you think that Malaysia is actually a great destination for retirees or for those actually wanting to get away from the winters period to come over to Malaysia and spend those cold months here?
You probably answered it there as well. I would say Malaysia is a fantastic destination for people that want to retire. Why? We have a long winter in Europe, especially in Northern Europe, you know, where it's Scandinavia or the UK where I'm from. They tend to go on. Our summers can be 2 months or 2 days. You don't know. And also people who live in the UK and you know, it's cold. And of course that can play with your bones, arthritis. Coming to Malaysia, you don't have that problem so much. So the humidity as well and the tropics really is good for your health. As you can see, it's pretty good for your complexion as well. It's not too bad. So I'd say it's a great place to retire in that particular respect.
You know, Greg, as you're mentioning, you know, Malaysians a 13-hour flight. I mean, are there closer destinations to Britain that can actually still give and warrant the same kind of weather, where Britain could, you know, the British could actually still enjoy the tropical warmness without traveling too far away from London or UK itself?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you could fly, you know, 2.5, 3 hours to Greece or, you know, kind of to the Balearics down there, Spain. But honestly speaking, even though they are relatively priced as well, you're not going to get the same. Okay, cost of living is much lower here in Malaysia compared to the UK or even Southern Europe. Number two, here you've got world-class education for your kids as well. You've got world-class healthcare at a fraction of the price compared to what you get in the UK. And in terms of quality, no offense to, you know, the South Mediterranean, but I would say in Malaysia, we really do have quality healthcare as well. So these are a lot of contributing factors which make Malaysia, I would say, a fantastic destination to retire to.
Greg, can I just ask you, would you roughly know what is the nest egg size of most Brits who are retiring? And if you were to compare apple to apple, if they were to choose to, say, spend 4 months or 5 months out of every year, say in Southern Europe, where it's slightly warmer compared to Malaysia or Asia per se, how long would a nest egg last if they were to choose Southern Europe as opposed to Asia and then Malaysia?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot there, Ernest, aren't you? Honestly, I'd find it hard to give you an exact figure because from the south of England to the north of England, especially now during this COVID period, it's a tough time for everybody, and everyone's looking at their retirement funds, and they're looking for their money to go longer. It could be anything between, you know, 500,000, 750,000, million plus. Over here, it'd go a lot further. My personal belief is it'd go a lot further. I think you can manage it well, especially if you look at locations. You're unlikely. Okay, so if you're from the UK, you're probably unlikely to live in Kuala Lumpur. You most likely want to get out of the city, something you're used to, or if you work in the city, you'd probably want to go up to Penang, maybe up there as well, because you get a bit of a mix between a bit of city, a bit of culture, a bit of heritage, and you've also got the beach there as well. So I like the kind of balance there, and that is popular for British expats retiring. That being said, I know from, you know, the Koreans and the Japanese, they like Kuala Lumpur. They like it because you've got the healthcare here. You know, you've got the amenities within just, you know, just around the corner. Whether they're living in KLCC or slightly maybe towards Bangsa or Monkiara.
Actually, you led into the next question, which I wanted to ask you. What kind of lifestyle would the Brits prefer when it comes to Malaysia, the hillside, the countryside, the beach, or party side in the city. But you mentioned just now it's Penang, they have everything over there. Would there be something closer to, say, Selangor that could be the equivalent, say maybe in Port Dickson or Malacca for that matter?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, personally, I love Malacca. I've been going there for years. I think it's a fantastic place as well. The only thing which Penang has, which Malacca doesn't, is it hasn't got the beach. You know, it hasn't got that kind of the hilltops there, the Penang Hill, down to the beach area, Batu Ferenghi, easy access on the plane to Kuala Lumpur in an hour, just over an hour. That's what Penang offers. Also, excuse me, Penang offers direct flights. No, correct me, I could be wrong, but it used to offer direct flights to the UK and to other areas in Europe, and that was always a nice attribute. And one of the contributing reasons why Penang was probably a little higher up there than perhaps Malacca.
Greg, what about other surrounding countries within Malaysia or within an hour's flight of Malaysia? You could hit Thailand, you could hit Indonesia, Bali, you know, you could probably even hit Cambodia or Vietnam. Would they also be very strong attractions for Brits to retire in or consider spending 6 months out of a year there?
Okay, that's a good question, and I think it's almost multifaceted in the sense that if you're an expat and you want to buy property in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia, it's not as straightforward as it is in buying Malaysia. You can't, and I don't want to put a blanket across this, but I believe in most of those countries, you can't have a freehold. You can't have 100% ownership over the properties as well. It is a little bit harder, I believe, but sometimes it could be a little bit cheaper. Yes, but it really depends on what your tolerance level is and how well you know the local area. That being said, is Malaysia's the gateway to Asia, and I firmly believe that as well. You can travel, and if I was retiring here from the UK, I'd probably spend 6 or 7 months here, maybe a month in Bali, taking it easy, and I'd go back to the UK to spend some time with my family.
Can I just ask you, in terms of the layouts of the houses, would you say that, you know, for a retiree, maybe a slightly different layout compared to what's available here in Malaysia is required, or you could literally plug and play with any kind of property over here already in? The retirees or those who are actually slightly aged could also say that it's safe, it's comfortable, and I can make a play out of it immediately without any renovations.
Well, if I'm retiring here and I'm retiring for till I'm 80, 90, you know, this is a true retirement destination. I probably look at, if I'm looking at, let's just say Penang, I'm probably looking at a condominium, easy access, less staircases. That's probably why landed, I probably wouldn't go for landed. I want the safety, the security, the amenities. I want to be close to the grocers, you know, so I can pick up my little items. Of course, we've got many international grocers now across the country. Yeah, I'd probably do that. I'd probably choose a condominium, something easy. Are they similar to the UK? Yes, they are similar. But we just don't have carpets here because of the dust. So we just have less carpets. All in all, though, it's pretty much the same. Of course, wet kitchens and dry kitchens. That's one of the core differences as well. As far as the room configurations go, it's pretty much the same. Oh, we do have more en suites here.
Greg, what about the level of safety? Is that a major concern for not just retirees, but for expats in Malaysia such as yourself? Do you find that safety is a concern here for you in Malaysia?
I think you have two halves to this. You have one half which is like, oh, it's fine, there's no problem whatsoever as well. And then you've got those which have spent time here before. Maybe they had their sons or daughters or friends working here. They've been here for a visit. They love the place, thinking about retiring here. But safety and security is always a key factor. And that's probably why I said I'm leaning towards condo. But Malaysia is a very safe country, I'd say. You go to the UK, it's not a safe place. There's many countries around the world which aren't safe. If we have small problems in Malaysia, it would be, you know, snatch thieves. But I think we're getting better and better here at managing that, a lot better. There's small issues compared to, you know, the violent crimes you get in other European countries as well.
Great. You were mentioning as well earlier that the level of healthcare over here is at a fraction of the price that you could get either in Europe or in the UK itself. But does that fraction in price also result in a fraction of services offered, or are we talking about apple for apple in terms of services, but prices as apples and oranges?
Well, I mean, like if you look at medical tourism, Malaysia has taken off in the medical tourism field as well. I would say services are apple for apple. Most of your doctors here who are in their baby boomers kind of age bracket or younger in their 30s, 40s, they pretty much all trained outside of Malaysia in the first place. And I think that gives a little bit more confidence to those who are overseas coming in. And of course, as Malaysia spent more and more time developing its medical tourism, people around the world are now aware that whether it's cosmetic surgery or hip replacements or heart surgery, hair transplants, Malaysia is one of the key destinations to come to. And I think we've done a fantastic job marketing that as well.
Great. Greg, a lot of comments that I've been getting from both locals and expats alike is the level of terrible traffic, especially in the city center area or the city areas. Would this be a put-off for a lot of the expats coming here to know that, wow, you can get stuck in a gridlock for hours, and especially when it rains, it could be potentially flooding issues as well?
No, I don't think so, Ernest. I think if you're considering to come into Malaysia, you've already factored in the traffic levels. But remember, the traffic's nowhere near as bad as Jakarta, not as bad as Bangkok. I personally feel that. I've been to both cities a lot, and we're not even on the same level. Yeah, okay, we may not be Singapore in terms of efficiency-wise, but that's why we love it here. We love that little bit of grittiness as well. Yeah, and to be honest with you, you choose where you want to live. If you live in Mont Kiara, most likely you're going to spend 80 to 90% of your time in Mont Kiara. If you live in KLCC, you won't need to travel far. I live in the country, and I choose to live here because I love being surrounded by mountains. But you choose exactly, you already know what you're going to get. You already know where you want to go.
Great. We've been talking a lot about West Malaysia. How about East Malaysia? Do you think that could be an allure as well for those from Europe and the UK?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Sabah's, the flight connectivity in other parts from China, Korea, Taiwan to Kota Kinabalu is fantastic. And I know that it's getting more and more popular. And I know right now it's going for a little bit of a hard time, but that'll pass. It'll pass in no time whatsoever. And everyone's going to come back, and it's going to be a fantastic destination once again, not just to invest in, but to live in as well. But the gem for me is Sarawak. It's kind of like the unspoken brother, because, and I love it, because Kuching is such a small and beautiful town. You've got access down the rivers there as well. It's such a beautiful place to raise a family or to retire in. You couldn't get any better. Fantastic beaches, beautiful, pristine rainforests.
Great. Can I ask you, assuming that if I were a Brit, not quite at retirement age, but say if I had about £500,000, I know that probably if I wanted to take life easy and extend my lifestyle or live longer rather than to live a very stressful life chasing on a hamster wheel, and retiring in Malaysia would be a solution that I could think of. Could you advise me, what would I need to do next to find out, or what can I do to find out more about the potential destination in Malaysia that I could consider retiring in?
Oh. Okay, so let's just say I've got £500,000, which is what? Is that what, 2.5 million these days? Something around about there?
2.5 to 3 million, yes.
2.5 to 3 million. So 2.5 to 3 million ringgit will go a long way to buying you, a world-class property. What I would do is I'd probably put most of the money into a nice property towards, where would I go? Gurney Drive in Penang. That area, perhaps, it's a lovely area. You get a beautiful view. They're doing a whole regentrification, I think that's the term as well, of the whole Bay Area there. It's going to be stunning. It's going to be beautiful. They're doing a great promenade area there. Or perhaps I go a little bit more up to Penang Hill. But I definitely stay out of the city. It's only a personal preference for me. I'd put maybe £1.5 million into that property as well there. The rest of it I keep nestled away in a little bit of a nest egg as well. Keep it towards a bit of my health insurance. Even though it's cheap in Malaysia, I'd still keep that parked away as well. And then I put the rest of my money towards traveling.
Well done. How about cost of food? I mean, we talked a lot about the property itself, but the cost of food in Malaysia, is it a very pricey thing? I'm not talking about Malaysian cuisine per se or hawker food per se, but if you were to go, say, to a cafe or to a restaurant, what kind of prices would you look at for expats consider?
I'd say, generally speaking, okay, let's break it down into shopping. Generally speaking, you're going to probably save about 35%, maybe, yeah, 35% on your shopping bill compared to the UK, maybe even more than that, in equivalent brands. You may not get the total variety that you're used to in the UK, but I think that's fine. I mean, you can, subsidize that with other brands and products as well. So that's in terms of shopping wise. I think you'll save a good amount of money there. In terms of going out and eating, fraction of the price, Ernest. It really is. And also one of the things which I think people don't notice so much, which my dad did, he goes, if you live in, let's just say Penang, or you're living in KL, you can go out and you can have, Chinese, Indian, Korean, Japanese, pretty much any dish. In the UK, unless you're living in the cities, your international cuisine options are not as broad as that. I'm from Bournemouth in the South Coast. Yeah, you can have that, but it's going to cost you a pretty penny.
Noted, understood. Great. You're also a registered real estate negotiator. And for someone who's actually in this particular line, what would your advice be for someone really wanting to consider and wanting to reach out to you? What would you say that they would need to first have in their hands or in their minds before they speak with you?
First thing is, if you're looking or considering returning to Malaysia, why? Always look at the why. What kind of lifestyle do you want? Do you want to live in the city? Do you want to have the vibrance, the restaurants, the theaters, that lifestyle, like the equivalent of kind of like living in London? Or do you want to step away from that? Do you want to have a lot more laid back? Do you want to live in kind of like a jungle resort environment? Or do you want to have a beach resort? Or do you want a combination of the both? I think that's the first determining factor. That's the first question I'd ask. So we know where to go from there. Once you've got that nailed, the rest is easy.
What else would they have to consider before they even reach out to you? Financially or health-wise, do they need to consider any of those things first?
I think before you go away, as you would if you're going on a holiday, but if you're going away for a longer period of time, have a full checkup for free on the NHS. Really get a checkup, find out how you're doing, get a full fitness test done as well. So you can then bring those records with you. And then you can forge a good, strong relationship with your local general practitioner, family practitioner. And the great thing is you have easy access and direct access to whether it's pediatricians, OBGYNs, Asian care specialists as well. So the great thing is you bring your records with you as well, and then you can actually have a holistic review here so that it can be monitored. So I'd say that's probably one of the most important things I'd look at if I'm retiring here and I'm in my kind of 50s, 60s.
Is language then a barrier for you, or has language been a barrier for you since you've arrived? And how do you feel the level of competency in communication over here with Malaysians?
Okay, Ernest, you're going to embarrass me and I'm going to embarrass myself right now. I've been here 17 years and my Bahasa is pretty horrendous. And I'm embarrassed to say that. It was okay for the first year or two. And then as the years went by, it got worse and worse. So Malaysia is such an easy country. Too easy. Because everyone speaks English, pretty much, across the country. And it's not like Thailand where you've got to speak a bit of Thai to really get by. It's not like Indonesia where you've got to speak a bit of Bahasa to get by. And that's one of the key contributing factors. English language is so widely spoken, and that's why it's become such a popular destination for overseas people.
Great. Last question I wanted to ask you. You've been here for 17 years. Of the 17 years, will we see another 17 years moving forward or longer? Or are you about to say, well, time to move away from Malaysia after this and look at other Asian destinations or even head back to the UK?
Should have done that after 5 years, Ernest. It's too late now. I'm Malaysian. I think you go through periods of living in a foreign country where you have your ups and downs as you would in your own country. I've been here 17 years. I'm probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Reason is I've got 3 children, and they love it here in Malaysia. That being said, someone offered me a really good deal, I might think about it.
I guess when you actually chose to come to Malaysia, I'm not sure whether you actually had the thought of living here. Maybe you thought of coming here for a holiday. Any regrets coming over here?
No, I remember leaving and I said to my mum, look, mum, if it doesn't work out, I'll be back in 3 months. My mum looked at me and she goes, you ain't coming back, son.
I guess
she was right. That was 17 years ago. But don't think that I haven't been home. Of course, I've been home to see my mum and dad. But I traveled a lot beforehand, and I'm 41 now. I came here when I was 23. So
But Greg, curiously, do your parents like Malaysia? I mean, I presume
yes.
You've been here before.
My dad's been here probably about 30 times as well. My mum has as well. My mum is very English. She suffers a little bit from the hot weather. Also from the food, she likes her potatoes and veggies, meat and veg. She's a bit of an English lady. My dad, on the other hand, loves it. My brother lives in Sydney, so it's kind of a balance. He'll spend a couple of months here. He'll spend a couple of months in Australia, and for him, I think that's perfect.
Greg, what's your favorite local cuisine?
Well, okay, I'm a vegetarian now, but before I was a vegetarian, I used to love a bit of char kway teow. I love a bit of rendang. I love that as well. I'm into a bit of vegetarian nasi lemak at the moment. I'm loving that.
Okay.
So I've got to watch my waistline, Ernest.
Oh, you know what? One of the questions that I would have definitely asked is that, do you miss the bak kut teh?
Actually, I haven't had that for a while. Okay, I've got to get on that one as well. But now I'm a vegetarian. It's a little harder.
Oh, there's a vegetarian version of it, made with mushrooms.
Okay. I'm on it.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Greg, and thanks for letting us pick your brains with regard to how an expat or someone looking at Malaysia could consider Malaysia as the final and retirement destination they should look at in Asia. Thanks so much for sharing us also your insights and your experiences in terms of how you would help or expats or people considering coming to Malaysia, in terms of what you can do to help them make their transition much easier. And by always asking what's the why first, and why do they want to come here to begin with? And then you'll be able to help them with it. And lastly, thank you so much for promoting Malaysia. I think Malaysia has definitely is a great place to retire in because of all the amenities and facilities that you've said. More importantly, I think Malaysia is a great place to live because of the weather. It's going to be one temperature all year round, hot and humid. You just probably have to go indoors to turn on the AC just to make sure that you have a little cooling period. But by and large, I think it's a great destination to just hang out and chill, literally. Last but not least, thank you so much for joining us today. And is there anything that you'd like to say to our viewers and watchers today so that they can help make themselves better financial decisions? Should they invest in properties?
I just hope, Ernest, that people take the opportunity to do a bit of research about Malaysia, and they'll soon realize it's a fantastic destination to come reside in, retire, and enjoy.